NFL draft went down last weekend. Obviously, the biggest story of the draft, Shedeur Sanders, and his fall. And we're going to get to that in just a second because I know that's a part of the title. But before we do that, let's talk about the hometown team. Let's talk about the Chiefs. What did you think of what they did in the draft?
I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. I thought they would go running back a little bit earlier than what they did in waiting until the seventh round. But I thought the guy that they got in the seventh round was a. I mean, I don't like to use the word steal when we're talking about seventh round, but I thought it was a great value pick at running back for what they got. After the most of the top guys or the first six or something were gone, I think that would made a lot of sense. Um, Obviously, Tennessee fan loved Omar Norman Lott pick. I think he's going to be really, really good. I think he's going to do very well there in the trenches with Chris Jones. The defensive end that they got out of where's he from? I can't
Louisville,
remember.
Ashton Gelati.
Louisville. Okay,
I'm
yeah,
getting ready
yeah.
to pull up, and I'm going to pull up here. I'm getting ready to pull up their draft here. So this is his history, but you can see at the very top, this is what they did here. So yeah, Ashton Gelati out of Louisville. I really like Ashton. I watched him play against Notre Dame. Very powerful young man. He has a high motor. I know they've already made like the George Karlaftis comparisons. I think just based off what I saw from Georgia in college and Ashton in college, I would say that the ceiling might be slightly higher for Ashton Gelati, in my opinion. Maybe he'll
hmm
prove me right or wrong on that. But I thought that was a very good pick for the Chiefs in that third round.
This Royals kid, man, his highlight tape, touchdown, like machine, like seemed to be like a very sneaky good pick there in the fourth round.
Yep.
And I think they addressed the needs. I think Noel Williams, from what I've seen from him as well, like I thought it was a really good draft. And one thing about us is like the history of drafting. I mean, just look at these guys right here. I mean, if you're just looking at this list for the last 4 years, like they know what they're doing in Kansas City. They go get their guys and they become those guys. And so I thought they addressed all the necessary needs. And yeah, I'm excited. So I mean, it was necessary too, though, because I think the rest of the division did a very good job as well. I think the Raiders, Chargers, and Broncos all had really good drafts.
Man, listen. The Raiders, hey, Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty back to back years. Go get Geno Smith. You go get a new coach and Pete Carroll. I'm not saying they win a division. The division is still runs through KC, but man, Denver going and getting Jahdae Barron from Texas. I'm trying to think. The Chargers, I mean, they had no wide receivers. I think they went and got I think was it the young man from Ole Miss,
Yeah,
right? They get a
Trey. I don't remember his
Trey
name.
Watkins, I'm
Trey
guessing, but
Williams or something. Trey Williams, maybe.
um but they go get Omarion Hampton, who, I was a big fan of oh gosh, who's the guy you snaked me for in the dynasty draft from Notre Dame, whose now name I can't remember.
Audric Estime.
Audric Estime, excuse me. Sorry. Audric Estime, I think he is a better version of that.
So you're a big
Which that's
Hampton
gonna
fan. Okay, just need to make sure I remember that one.
oh my gosh. Um shout out to my guy Zach. He asked, what was your take on the D tackle that y'all got from Tennessee?
Yeah, Tennessee, like we sub in and out a whole lot with our defensive tackles. So he's not a guy that's that played every down. But he was just a very disruptive like run stopper. Like I mean, tackles for loss. Like just I mean, I can't say and remember a lot of like sack wise, like but I just remember when he was in, like you just had that feel like nothing was coming up the middle when Norman Lott was playing defensive tackle, and not only that, like personality wise, just energy wise, he's just instant energy, and
Mm.
I think that's just just kind of his character, or whatever. So yeah, I really thought I didn't think about the Chiefs picking him, before the draft because I wasn't processing D tackle like that for the Chiefs. What everybody, offensive line, running back, like what are we gonna do? And when they made that pick, I thought, wow, does this makes a lot of sense, a lot of sense. And that's one thing about Rodney Garner, the coach for the D line at Tennessee, man. He's just done a great job since he's been there. You see Byron Young with the Rams, just very, very good. James Pierce Jr. went in the first round to the Falcons. Norman Lott. There's defensive tackle wise, like Tennessee has been producing, guys that are not really busts, guys that come in and show out.
Yeah, shout out to my guy Aaron Levy. Yeah, man. I'm old out here. You know what I'm saying? I'm old. I'm an old man.
Hey, man,
Um,
listen, no offense, Aaron, but listen, bro, your profile picture, go back. You can't be talking about people's hair. Like, my dog.
Listen, I don't have a lot of room to talk. I don't have a lot of room to talk. You
I'm
got
just,
it. Yeah, you got more than
he's
what I got. You know what I'm saying? So, shout out to Zach, man. This is mean. This is mean. Although
very mean, very mean.
I did
We don't
post
wish that upon
post in our group.
anybody.
I did post in our group chat that Henry Ruggs is expected to be released from prison, and teams are interested. And I just did not think that guy would get any looks. Now, that could be speculation. I forget
I
there was
don't
a
think
former.
you're very, very interested, but you know.
I mean, so Josh Jacobs, I guess he was on some podcast and he said that teams were interested. And look, I mean, I am for second chances. I just find it hard to think that young man is going to get a second chance given everything that surrounds him. Obviously, maybe he has matured and learned from being incarcerated for 3 years, but I just don't know how advocacy groups will allow him back on the field. If people were showing up for Michael Vick like 5 to 7 years after the dogfighting thing, driving 100 plus, I think it was 130 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone, hitting that young lady, and then she burned alive, her and a dog in the car. Bro, that's a tough one to explain to fans why you brought this guy in. So that being said, I'm gonna jump to the Niners real quick, man, and address our draft. I liked what they did. I don't, I have said, homies have been saying to me, man, what's going on with your team? They letting everybody go, they cutting everybody, yada yada yada. And I'm like, look, man, the owners, now I think it's a little petty. The owners shelled out a lot of money. The season went into the tank. They were upset, so that's why you saw all these different guys walk out the door, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But I am excited to see what some of these young guys can do. I am really like Michael Williams, super strong. He's got size. He can play different positions along the line, which they need more versatility. They went and got a couple of defensive tackles, one out of Texas, another one out of Indiana. That was kind of a draft favorite if you followed during the draft season. They went and got another running back, which they love to do. And they
Who they
got
get
Jordan
running back?
Watkins, Jordan James out of Oregon.
Okay.
So I think he was a good running back for them. Jordan Watkins was a good wide receiver at Ole Miss, and so I'm excited. And they got a kid named Nick Martin. I know some people think that Nick Martin was selected maybe a couple of rounds too early, in part because he was coming off of a MCL injury that caused him to miss. Like he only played 4 games last year for Oklahoma State, but that dude was a heat-seeking missile. If you go watch the tape and watch the plays that he was making, instinctive. He got there. He got to the ball carrier quickly. When he got there, he came and showed up with some thunder, right? Like to lay the smackdown once he got to the ball carrier. So I am excited for this team. They needed to get younger. They were one of the oldest teams in the league last year. They got to re-sign Brock Purdy, hopefully not for $50 million a year. But they got to re-sign him. They re-signed Kittle. And so they got to get younger by necessity in order to try to replenish the team and move forward. And the last thing I'll say about this before we jump into talk to Shedeur, there was a article that the Athletic did about how successful organizations have been in the draft over the last 5 years. I forget who was number one, but the Kansas City Chiefs were number two. I know, I understand that, and I've said this on several occasions on this show. I understand that Howie Roseman of the Eagles gets a lot of love. He gets a lot of hype. They are the defending Super Bowl champions, so he deserves credit for building that roster. But for my money, over the last 5, I would say even maybe 7 years, you mentioned it when I pulled the draft list, history list up. You look over the last 7 years, 5 to 7 years. Brett Veach, for my money, has been the best GM in football, in part because he's also been drafting in the back half of the draft that entire time. They've won their division, I think, like 9 years in a row, something like that.
Mhm.
They're starting to get that kind of KU. You remember the heyday of KU? We've won the Big 12 15 years in a row.
I hated that.
They're getting to that space where they are dominating the AFC West. Like you said, it's going to become more of a dogfight than it has been in previous years. These teams are getting better. They're catching
Mhm.
up. And so the AFC West might be one of the more competitive divisions in football this year, just because of everything that has happened with these other teams who are chasing the Chiefs. And I'm going to bring it up again. Yes, Zach, they're going to have to get the Brock Purdy contract right. I don't want to talk about it right now. I just want to wait until we get the numbers. I don't want to speculate. But yeah, like the things that Denver did, they already had Riley Moss. Shout out to DEI hires, Riley Moss, white cornerback in the NFL. They have obviously the reigning defensive player of the year, Patrick Surtain. They go get Jahdae Barron, who can probably play some safety, can probably play some corner, can play outside. He can be a Swiss Army knife. They're turning into a no-fly zone on in that secondary. So I cannot wait to see. I can't wait to do our dynasty draft. Don't mess with Amarion Hampton. I've already told. I already,
I'm good. I'm good. You know I'm good. I'm good. I won't touch him.
Yeah, you say that now. You say that now. I talked. I hyped
I don't
up
even think I have a
Austin
second
Eckler.
round pick. I have a first and 2/3 or something like that. So
I have no second round pick either. I think I just have a first, a third, and a fourth. So if
okay.
if I'm gonna clip this, hey, to the dynasty league, if y'all want to, jump up to the first and offer me a first next year and a second this year, we can talk. Holla at me. Anyway, but let's talk about Shedeur, man. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about Shedeur, and don't do that to my guy Brock. I mean, you're not necessarily wrong there, but and not in the literal sense of the term. Let's talk about Shedeur, man. Shedeur Sanders. There was a lot of hype going into the draft season about him, about where he could go, where he could be
Here we go, guys.
drafted.
This is another podcast where we just skip over the number one pick and we move to talking about Shedeur Sanders. We
You
are
know what?
ESPN, diet ESPN right now. We talked about the whole first round, two different teams. Not mentioned Cam Ward one time. No highlight tape, no interview, nothing. Let's move straight to Shedeur talk. Come on,
You know
A1.
what? Let's treat Shedeur like what happened in the draft. Let's forget about him for a little bit. Let's talk about Cam
No,
Ward.
no,
Nah, let's talk
don't try
about
that
Cam
now.
Ward.
We know where your
Yeah,
affiliation.
nah. You know what? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
Man.
right. Let's talk about Cam Ward. Like, do you think he'll be successful in his rookie season? Because I'm assuming he's going to be the starter. I can't believe maybe they'll start. Well, let's backtrack. Do you think they start him right away? Do you think they start Will Levis first and then let him develop on the bench and then bring him in maybe halfway through the season?
No, I think they start him right away. I don't think there's anything Will Levis does that, and plus, like, in the event Will Levis plays well in the first 4 games, then you have to ask yourself, like, now what are we looking at? Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, unless you're going to let Will Levis play half the season to the whole season, you know what I mean? And that's not going to happen. So I don't understand why, why you would start him there. But I think, I think with the Titans, they're not a very good team, but they're not they're not in a conference, I think, either that's, situationally, rough for them. I don't know what their first 4 games look like. But I think Cam Ward will be serviceable, good. I think he's going to be like Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, rookie of the year. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but I do think that he will give you some promise this year going into his second year that, like, this is our guy, They did their best in the draft wide receiver wise to put some guys around him. I forget who they picked. They got a good wide receiver in the draft, if I'm not mistaken. And then they, on the flip side, I don't know if it was an undrafted free agent, they picked up his buddy from Miami, the guy that had 2 billion catches or whatever, Reposado or whatever.
Xavier Restrepo. Xavier
Okay.
Restrepo.
All right, Reposado. So, but yeah, so, like, I mean, I think that they're doing their best to put the type of guys around them that are necessary, but, I'm not sure coaching wise, defensively, if that team is set up to make any kind of push. I think the big thing is he stays healthy. he stays upright, and that his confidence going into year two is there.
Yeah, so they got a young man out of Florida, Chimere Dike. Hopefully I said his name right. They went and got Gunnar Helm from so in round
I like that. I
four.
like that picture from Texas, that tight end. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In round four, they went completely offense that entire round. They got DK Helm and then Alec Ayo Manor from Stanford. And if you don't know who that is,
Oh,
the
yes.
he was the kid who torched Travis Hunter
Travis
for
Hunter.
like 13 catches and 225 yards and like three
Yeah.
touchdowns. In
I
the game where they
remember it
came
was
back
one
and
time,
beat
I don't know if I was talking
Buffalo.
to you or whatever. I was thinking of that game and I was referring to the Arizona wide receiver because I kept thinking, like, yo, I remember this dude for Arizona, the guy that went, what, 10th or whatever. I
Yep.
remember him going off. And I was in my mind, I was like, that's the game I was thinking about with that receiver. I was like, yo, he smoked Travis Hunter. Now we're all allowed to have a bad game. But yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, he smoked him. Absolutely smoked him. So yeah, so he is also there. So they try to, beef up. They obviously got Calvin Ridley there. So they're trying to invest into that team. They also picked up Khalil. What is that? Kyle L. Is it Kyle L like Superman or Khalil? But anyway, I'll go Khalil Mullings out of Michigan in the
Okay.
sixth round at running back as well. He had a really good game against USC when basically they threw for like 13 yards and still beat the Trojans. So yeah, man, I think it's an interesting draft from them. I think so. I do want to salute Cam. The thing that I would say about Cam that as a positive is that at every level, he showed improve, right? He started at, I think, Incarnate Word is where he starts. He puts up numbers there. He goes from Incarnate Word to Washington State. He puts up numbers there. He leaves state, goes to Miami, puts up numbers there, which I don't
I thought he
know.
went to Houston or Louisville before Washington, but no,
Nope,
I thought
nope.
he was
Three
somewhere.
schools, three different
Okay.
schools. You might be thinking of Tyler Shuck because he played about everywhere. He didn't play for
Yeah.
Houston though, but I know he was Texas Tech, Oregon, Louisville.
Mhm.
I feel like there was another school in between there. It might have been a Washington school, Oregon.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember all the schools that he went to, but it's like three or four schools that he went to because he played for 7 years. I mean, he's 25, right? He's an
Yeah,
old
yeah.
man by NFL standards. No, I was Oregon, Texas Tech, Louisville, three schools. So, but no, those are the three schools that
Jeez.
Cam played for. He showed improvement at each level. I'm super interested to see what he will do in his first year. Again, I've been on record as saying I wouldn't have taken any of these quarterbacks in the first round. God bless Jackson Dart. I mean, we watched while we were at the KU Colorado game. We watched Jackson Dart throw three interceptions in like 3 minutes. It was one per minute, just
No,
about
it was 3 interceptions in 3 plays, I think. I'm pretty sure.
something like that. It
One of
was
them
back
was
to back to
called
back
back
though.
something, and he just threw it right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So so again, I'm looking at the first round to see if there was any other interesting players or stories that we can talk about before we jump into Shador. But I do hope that I do obviously for every player. I don't wish failure on anybody. I do hope that everyone will be successful. Again, I like the Marion Hampton. I kind of understand, but don't understand Matthew Golden going to going to Green Bay. They already have three or four really good wide receivers. I know they lost Christian Watson for the year to the ACL injury. He can never seem to stay healthy, but I feel like they got like a really solid set of players already. So I didn't necessarily understand that one.
Hello? Hello?
Um, oh, did
Hello?
did you lose me?
Hold on. No, hold on. I think I'm getting drafted right now. Somebody just called me and said I'm getting picked. Uh,
Hilarious. So with that being the segue, Zach posts this with Shador sliding down the draft. The viewership of the latter end of the draft was a record high. That may not be the sole reason his slide, but it was profitable. Absolutely. If I put on my tinfoil conspiracy kufi says that the NFL made the call to the teams not to have Shador drafted so people would be invested. I mean, look, you made the joke about Cam and how like we were ignoring him, but that literally happened on the broadcast. And they went Roger Goodell came out. He got booed. He goes, "Welcome everybody. Thank you, Green Bay. You've been a great city." And with the first pick of the 2025 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Cam Ward, quarterback Miami. And on ESPN, they went Cam Ward, quarterback Miami. That's great. Okay, so Shador, where do you think his floor is?
No,
Like
you
that
remember when
literally
we were
happened.
watching it live, it was Shador's highlights that were up. You know what I mean? Like the entire time. We're like watching him at Jackson State. And I was looking, I was like, oh yeah, that's not Cam Ward, and I didn't even realize that they didn't air his interview, that they didn't like. And yeah, it was it's just wild. It was kind of sad actually.
It is, and I do feel like
We're not
ESPN.
talking about Eric Fisher. You know what I mean? We're not talking about something that's like an offensive lineman and it's just like whatever. We're talking about a quarterback who is better. Who is yeah. It was just wild to see.
Who's a better pro prospect? By all intents and purposes, he was a better player than Shador. Like,
Mhm.
not that Shador was trash in college, but he was a better player than Shador at Miami, in my opinion. So to have the coverage go from here's the number one pick to we're just going to forget that, and it was crazy, right? Because we were watching it live. They even had the highlights package for Shador happening even while the Titans were on the clock. So you would have thought, okay, they have gotten their fill of Shador conversation going into the first pick, and now we're starting to focus on the teams. Look, shout out to Mel Kiper. I hope Dion owe that man something. I don't know what,
Something.
because he was crashing out. I don't even really use that term that much, but he was crashing out on live TV to the point to where people are like, Mel, the NFL. It reminded me in the group chat when I was defending the NBA, and Jesse goes, "Bro, are you okay? Like, what is wrong?" Like, Mel was going nuts defending Shador. He's a top five player in the draft. The NFL doesn't know what it's doing when it comes to quarterbacks, and so there have been a lot of theories about why Shador fell to the fifth round. And I feel like, so as the black part of this show, as the black person part of the show, I feel like I need to address our people for a second. I understand that a lot of you, maybe you don't watch as much college football. Maybe you do, right? Maybe you are tuned in and tapped in. But every time something happens to a black person we don't like, it is not some conspiracy by the man to hold him down. Here's the real. Let's chop this fable. Shedeur Sanders slid because he thought, and his father, there's another lesson to be learned in that as well. His father thought that he was Dion, right? He thought that he was as talented as Dion. And listen, as a parent, I love my son. My son has an affinity for STEM. He likes to play video games, and I like to think that my son is really great at those things. And that if there was some way for him to monetize that, I would love to think that my son could be the best video gamer and the best STEM person around. But that does not mean I get to say he's Steve Jobs. Right. Does not mean I get to say that my kid he's the next I'm trying Bill Gates, right? Dion, you love your child, you think he's great, but you gave him bad advice. You told him to go out here and not take these interviews seriously. And this is a job interview. You told him not to take it seriously. You told him to tank these interviews trying to get to a destination in a draft where there wasn't a bunch of teams that needed quarterbacks. Most of the teams who needed quarterbacks, they drafted them last year. So there was only two or three teams based on all the movements that had happened prior to the draft that needed QBs. And so those were the teams where he needed to show his best. And it was reported that with the Giants, he didn't do that. He didn't give his best. And so the Chiefs, why would they draft Shedeur Sanders? For what? Right? Like you could just start going through all 32 teams and saying, well, why would they take him? Because at best he was going to be a backup and he was not going to, and you don't, again, you want your backup to be anonymous, essentially, and not have the head coach of a football team stop a press conference and say, my son should be starting. Right. So the bad job of pre-combine stuff, um the teams didn't think he was as talented as they thought he was, that caused him to slide. So with that being said, what was your take on him falling, and what may be the reasons behind him slipping to the fifth round.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is to remember is that like he slipped to the fifth round, but he slipped to like maybe maybe 10 or to 12 picks that we thought he would have been taken at. You know what I mean? Like, because there's not a lot of teams that are taking quarterbacks, like you said, and of those teams, thought maybe the Steelers were going to grab one. Obviously, the Steelers, decided, they're still in the whole Aaron Rodgers lottery, like that's how they feel. Or they, for some reason, have faith in Mason Rudolph or whatever. But like what you said, like teams took quarterbacks last year. Next year, you got Archie Manning, you got Drew Aller, you got Grant Nussmeier, you got Lenore Sellers, there's a good quarterback, a better probably quarterback class next year as well, than what is this year. So teams are also looking at that, like, okay, is Shedeur Sanders really going to change my team to the point to where I'm going to want him on the team without the ability to draft a Archie or Drew or whatever it may be. But I do think that a lot of it had to do with Dion. I wonder, like, the parallel between LeBron and Bronny, and just the pressure that LeBron put on Bronny. Just with him being as outspoken as, wow, he's better than half of the NBA already, and he's this, that, and the third, and like you were talking about, is that father son, whatever it may be. And I think that a lot of what at one point, I think last year, Dion, or the year before, and I don't know if it was actually a quote he said, but I remember him saying, like, he won't go into the draft if he's not being taken first overall. I think there was like a, you know what I mean? And you're on mute still. Yeah, so like, there's just a whole bunch of just unnecessary, and like you said, I mean, I heard some of the same rumors of the interviews and him not even working out for certain teams, and these are the only teams, and different things like that. And it's just kind of like, at the end of the day, like, guess what? You're gonna come and play for whoever picks you. So we're either gonna get you for high or we're gonna get you for cheap. And the 4 or 5 teams that we're gonna pick him, there's only probably four or 5 teams in the NFL that we're going to draft Shedeur Sanders, because, like you said, remember when Tebow was on the outside? Nobody wanted to bring Tebow in as a backup. They didn't want all of what comes with having Tim Tebow in their locker room as a backup quarterback. They didn't want that, And a lot of these teams, we're not bringing in Shedeur Sanders to play behind Sam Darnold. We just gave Sam Darnold this amount of money. You know what I mean? We want him to feel right at home. Like, hey, we want you to play the same way you played last year for the Vikings. We're not bringing Shedeur Sanders. Like, there's a whole bunch of teams like that. And so, of the 4 or 5 teams that are going to pick him, they're like, all right, well, guess what? I have a feeling he's gonna be around. And look, guess what? The Browns traded up. They traded up to get him. Like, they said, all right, the time has come, and traded up and grabbed him because of all of those extracurricular things. But I think most understand is, like what you said, Cam Ward. You said you didn't have him as like a first round grade, just kind of overall or whatever, but you understood whatever. I think the big thing is to realize that Shedeur Sanders is probably a 3rd to 5th round draft pick quarterback. I mean, look at the guys. I mean, look at the Hendon Hookers. Look at the some of these other guys who in college, looked just as good, if not better, against better competition that went 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round. Like, and so it's the travesty is that everybody says he should have went 1st and he went 5th. You know what I mean? And that's kind of and Mel Kiper. I mean, he really didn't do anything but put himself in that same. The NFL has no clue how to. I mean, his track record in addressing quarterbacks has not been the greatest either. So shout out to your DeShone Kizer. And him being in love with DeShone Kizer. Mel Kiper was.
I thought
Another
Deshaun was
former
going.
Brown. Another former Brown.
I thought DeShone Kizer was going to be the guy too. So this comment says basically saying politics were involved isn't far from what you consider conspiracies. But again, but to me, a conspiracy would involve, like, I've heard collusion, I've heard blackball, and I'm like, well, you can't blackball someone that you draft. Like, he fell from where people thought he should have gone, but like he got picked. A collusion would be because I even put in the group chat a couple times after, especially after the third round. I'm like, I don't know if this dude's going to get drafted. When we got to the fourth round, he still wasn't drafted. I'm like, I don't know if this dude's going to get drafted. And so again, is he? And here's the thing that he has to consider. To me, as a fifth round pick, you are easily cuttable. Like you are the low, like you might think that you are the most talented quarterback in that room, but you are the one who could be the first to be gone
I think the
if
big
you don't
scratcher for me
come in with your head on straight.
was the Dylan Gabriel the Gabriel pick, what, 1 or 2 rounds before. I think that's kind of where the head scratcher is. Um, but like you said, yeah, like your fifth round pick with 5 quarterbacks right now on on the team. You're looking at practice squad. You're looking at and that's why all these Canadian football leagues are out here, signing rights to him because, I mean, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people thought a lot of people were on the whole Pittsburgh is gonna draft him train, and that was I don't know if who had a conversation with Mike Tomlin or why he felt like and I don't know why Pittsburgh didn't draft him, honestly. I mean, I understand why they didn't draft him at 21, but I thought Pittsburgh, you know, would turn around. But
Man, that like so
I understand why the Saints
Pittsburgh.
went with Tyler Show. I understand that one because
I
I
so I,
to me, like, aren't Shedeur and Spencer Rattler like pretty similar?
I
I
think
would say,
Spencer has a stronger arm. I think Spencer has a
yeah,
stronger
and I would
arm.
say that height
So
wise and just whatever. Like, Shows
yeah,
was
yeah.
6'5", stand back. Shows probably going to be Ryan Mallett. He's probably not going to pan out. You know what I mean? He's going to be, like this. But I do understand saying, hey, this one didn't necessarily work. And Spencer Rattler might have been better kind of out of college, than Shedeur.
So I don't know if you've seen that. I think we might have talked about this, or maybe I posted in one of the group chats. But like the Tyler Shuck pick, and again, I watched him play several times. He's a good
You're not as
quarterback.
bad as your worst play, and you're not as good as your
You're
best play.
not as
Yes,
bad, but
I
God,
saw
that's a
that. But
really
I thought it was
bad
Will Levis
play,
out there
man.
again. I thought it was.
Oh God, that was a terrible play. So I don't. So I get your point of we already have Spencer Rattler, so that might be redoubling our efforts and going against Shador. I duly noted. I agree with you at 100% on Pittsburgh though. You're hoping and wishing that Aaron Rodgers is going to show up.
Yeah.
Um, you went and got Will Howard in the sixth round. Zach says this is Mason Rudolph 2.0. Maybe he is.
Yeah.
But you went
I
and
wouldn't
got
mind if
him, and I
anybody
think,
hit Will Howard in the head with a helmet either. Just let
oh
you
my
know
gosh,
that.
get that hate out your heart. But like you're waiting on this guy, and you just don't. I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't wait on Aaron Rodgers, not based on what I saw last year. I get he
Yeah.
played better to close the season. I just don't get it. I will say this for the Browns, in terms of picking 2 quarterbacks in this draft. I'm not mad at that because in a draft where you just don't know, at worst, maybe between the two of them, maybe you found your backup. Maybe you found a guy, if you're going to dip into the 26 draft and go and get a quarterback, maybe that's going to be this guy's going to be the backup for whoever you get in 26 or whatever, or maybe Kirk Cousins becomes available. Maybe that's what you got in Dylan Gabriel or Shador. I don't know. But I don't know. Like I hope he's successful. If the one thing you mentioned, the LeBron thing, the one thing I would say to men who are generational players whose kids are coming behind them playing that sport, I would say you need to keep somebody around who can give you that reel. Because when the reporting started to come out after the combine that one, people did not have Shador as a first round talent, and that two, that he was tanking, that he tanked the interviews at the combine, someone should have been able to sit down with Dion or Shador him by himself and say, listen, this is what teams are saying, right? You need to start at that point, you need to start taking it super seriously, trying to get back into the interview rooms with these teams that you blew off or were not serious with and show them a different side of you, a more focused side of you. Because had he simply did that, he probably still doesn't go in the first round, but he might go in the second. And then for sure, he's going in the third. Because the other thing I've seen people bring up is well, what about all these people who have, sexual assault? And what about Johnny Manziel? And what about Baker Mayfield? First of all, Baker and Johnny were better college players than Shedeur, respectfully. Number two, when those men got into those interview rooms, you didn't hear stories about, oh, they were a terrible interview. Johnny Manziel got drafted by Cleveland because he switched up on them and interviewed so well. That was what gave them the confidence to go and get him. And so in that moment, they needed someone to keep it real with them to say, hey, Prime, this not 1985, and this kid ain't you. You can't just show up and do what you want. You got to take this a lot more seriously than you were before. And that would be my advice to him now. My advice to him would be like, shut down the social media. Don't be on Twitch. Don't be doing all these rap songs and these music videos. You need to show these coaches that you are here for football because as it stands today, you are not their starter. Maybe you go into training camp and you blow them away and pull a Russell Wilson and go from being, after a second round QB who ends up being a starter his rookie season. But right now, you have to prove to them that I am all about football. And I would, whatever endorsements he's already agreed to, fulfill those obligations, but I wouldn't sign any new deals. I wouldn't be shooting any commercials. I wouldn't be online. I would show them that I am here to win and I'm here to be the quarterback for your team for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, what do you think it does? Do you have any effect on Shiloh? Like, do you think, like he's kind of like he signed undrafted free agent, didn't he? With I think the Buccaneers, maybe.
Correct.
But does any of that same stuff, like in regards to how Dion talks about both of his sons, or was it just pretty much Shedeur? Do you think Shiloh gets a fair share at like trying to make a team?
I feel like Dion is more level-headed about Shiloh than he is Shedeur. I think
Yeah,
Dion knows that Shiloh is, again, the genes only went but so far with those two, right? Like they are still good athletes, but they are not the same caliber athlete as him. And I think for Shiloh might actually be better suited for like an in the box safety, right? Than he is playing out in space. I don't think playing out in space was his strong suit. But
yeah,
Shiloh, he can lay a lick though. Like he can come into the box and he can be aggressive and he can hit you hard when you're trying to run the ball. You got some bubble screen going, but I don't think, to me, his best fit is special teams and see
yeah,
if he can build on that. So I think he is more level headed about him. Whereas Shedeur, I think Shedeur, he was groomed to be a quarterback. He was groomed to be the leader. He was groomed to be that guy. And he thinks he's the best quarterback in the league. And that's fine to believe that, but you also have to temper it with some type of reality. Shout out to Ursami. He said they wouldn't code switch, but I'm not asking them to code switch, right? Like I'm not asking them to be. I'm not asking him to change the way he talks per se. I'm saying show that you can. They always use this stupid analogy of the quarterback is the CEO of your team. He needed to show that he could be that. And again, listen, I work in corporate America. There are times when I don't want to talk about, well, can we revisit this conversation? I would like to spin the block on this conversation sometimes. Right. When we agree to a plan, I would like to say, okay, good, we'll revisit it. Sometimes I just want to say bet. Right. Like I want to sometimes, and I'm not a huge slang guy, but sometimes I want to use a little bit of slang at work. But I know I'm in a space where I can't do that. So where I can and with whom I can within that corporate space, I will.
Johnson. Exactly what block will we be spinning today? Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So he just, again, I'm not asking the code switch, but I was asking him to be more professional. Be more professional, take it more seriously, and show that you are the quarterback that this team. Because when you see all of the quotes, all of the videos of him and Cam working out, and he says, "Hey Cam, you want to come shoot a video?" And Cam's like, "No,
yeah,
I'm a football player."
yeah.
He's like, "I play football for a living. That's what I do. I don't do videos. I don't do streaming. I play football." Like that is what people want to see, whether or not that's true or not, right? If he was uber talented, he could be Anthony Edwards. Remember when Anthony Edwards said he wanted to be a great rapper coming
Yeah,
into the draft, and we were like, son, are you serious?
yeah,
Now, if Anthony Edwards released a rap record, we wouldn't think anything of it. Why? Because he is
He's going to give
posterizing
the Lakers
people.
30 tonight.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So now, if Anthony Edwards wants to drop a record with Future, he could do it because
Yeah.
he has shown and proven the league that he's one of those guys. So that would be my thing with Shedeur. Show and prove that you're one of those
Yeah.
guys, and you can
Don't be
go.
Shedeur, don't be the next LiAngelo Ball. Don't be the next Jello. I'm not trying to see
Man,
Shedeur at halftime of the Pro Bowl coming out rapping. All right.
ah, man, swerve in that corner. Whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, nah, we don't want you to be that man. So I want him to be great. I hope he's great. I hope all of these young men fulfill their dreams and have great careers and except against San Francisco, Kansas City. Be great. But yeah, anything else you want to say about Shador?
No, I think that's pretty much summed it up. I wonder who plays in more games this year, Shiloh or Shador? Shiloh makes the special teams. He can play it. He can play
Yeah,
it.
that's what I was thinking, man. If he makes it as a special teamer, he could definitely play in more games than Shador. I would take Shiloh in that case. Because to me, that's his path to early playing time is special teams. So I would take that.
Yo,
Final one. You know how they say clothes don't make the man. In this case, the dad don't make the player. Man, it's true. It's true. You know,
yo,
um, rooting for them all. Yeah, shout out to Jimmy Horn Jr. I think he might have went to Carolina. That is
yeah.
a big guess on my part, but I feel like it was Carolina. But yeah, shout out to Jimmy. Hopefully he is. Yeah, he got drafted by Carolina. Hopefully he makes it and is successful young man that I am also rooting for. All right, so let's turn the page, man. Let's jump into